All right, so let's get right into this video. Basically, people are spiced up, if you will, about DOGE uploading all of their social security numbers to a cloud server. And this was released by essentially a whistleblower who was a top SSA official. And as a result, people are pretty excited about it. Now, before I go through this, I want to release to you some information that is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial, okay, when it comes to understanding this. First off, have there been breaches previously when it comes to the release of social security numbers? Yes, there have been massive unregulated releases previously. That's Shadow in the background. Let's go through it. So if we go back to 2022, there used to be a social security number date of birth marketplace on the dark web where illicit social security number marketplace was seized by authorities. And basically about 24 million social security numbers were present on this illegal marketplace. That was seized in 2022. Then you had essentially the HIEU MINH NGO, which was 2007 to 2013, a cybercrime ring selling stolen social security numbers. Obviously, went to a lot of immigrants and illegal immigrants. 200 million estimated records were compromised in that. Then you have OPM. So the government's employee-related, it's like their employment HR group, right? It's like human relations for all of their, employees at the federal government. That group got breached. They lost about 22.1 million social security numbers, information, all that kinds of stuff. Then you have Anthem's breach, which was a healthcare provider with all the social security numbers, addresses, all that stuff. They lost in 2015 78.8 million accounts. And then there was Equifax. Financial data breach, including social security numbers. They lost about 148 million social security numbers, addresses, credit scores, what you requested credit applications on. Now, look, these are all bad, but nothing compares to the National Public Data Incident, which was December 2023, all the way through portions of 2024. They don't know how bad that one actually is. They don't know. They know this, okay? There was a company that would basically obtain and retain, it was a partner of the federal government, that would scan images and then link those images of you to a profile. So it would scan the entire internet, find any information it could, and put it in a box that was their black box of mystical, magical, under-the-table stuff on you. Okay, that's what happened. There was a company, a partner that did that, okay? And in order to do that, they had to link all those photos and this and that to your account. Obviously, one of the designators was social security numbers, addresses, stuff like that. A massive, never-before-seen Biden-era background check database was hacked, where it is believed between 270 million to 2.7 billion social security numbers were hacked, along with addresses and phone numbers and all that stuff. And ultimately, it was hacked by one hacker who tried to sell it, and then another hacker hacked that hacker and posted it to the dark web so that everybody could get access to it. The bottom line with this is that my social security number was hacked in that one too. The National Public Data event, that was massive. The bottom line of what I'm getting at is our social security numbers have been hacked many, many, many times before. So when it comes to the protection of those social security numbers, the government is kind of stuck in a weird spot. A, they really want to protect them, right? And B, they've already been stolen many times. So it's like, you know what I mean? What do we do? Do we come up with a new social security number system? Do we make everybody's cell phone like this double check system? How do we do it? How do we make this system safe? Because social security numbers are not a private number anymore. They're just not. There's too many of them out there, okay? Now, here's the deal that you need to understand. There was a whistleblower that came out. And I think that this story, which was, done by other channels, whatever, they're going to do what they're going to do. I think this story is a little bullshitty. Okay? Let me go through the actual article, the Forbes article, Sarah Dorn, Forbes staff, what she posted August 26th. Let me go through what she wrote, and then I'll explain to you why I did not right away jump on this, because I didn't think the Beanie Baby wagon was really done with a proper amount of ethics, honor, integrity, whatever term you want to use. Here we go. Top line, the Department of Government Efficiency uploaded a copy of all federal Social Security numbers to a high-risk server in June. According to a complaint by Social Security Administration Chief Data Officer Charles Borges, or whatever, how you pronounce it, that alleges the move created enormous vulnerabilities. The Government Accountability Project Whistleblower Protection Group submitted a report on Borges' behalf to the federal government's Office of Special Counsel and congressional committees on Tuesday. Borges said DOGE employees uploaded the database to a server that only DOGE could access that did not have the type of independent security monitoring typically required, despite a Social Security Administration assessment that determined the project was high risk and could have a catastrophic impact if the cloud server were breached. The files, referred to as the Numident database, Numident, if any of you guys are into Lord of the Rings, now's your moment. So anyways, the files referred to as the Numident database include records of all Social Security numbers issued by the federal government, including full names, addresses, and birth dates, according to the complaint. Borges' complaint does not say there's evidence the database was breached. Borges' complaint adds to the contention surrounding DOGE's access to Social Security information, which has been the subject of multiple lawsuits seeking to block DOGE from accessing data. The Supreme Court granted DOGE unlimited access to the data. Because remember, lower courts were like, you can't access it. No, you can't review it. No. And then the Supreme Court was like, the entire purpose of this agency, started by Obama and then wiggled into whatever it is now, is to review and audit the systems. Borges' complaint does not say why DOGE might have wanted access to this particular federal database. Former DOGE head Elon Musk and President Donald Trump have claimed previously, without evidence, that millions of dead people were receiving Social Security payments. A 2024 internal audit found that accidental underpayments and overpayments accounted for less than 1% of the $8.6 trillion in total payments between 2015 and 2022. I am curious, do you guys think, 1% of 8.6 trillion of basically, improper payments, whether they're fraudulent or they just make a whoops or whatever. Let's see, what is, I'm too tired. It's literally 12:56 a.m. What is 1% of 8.6 trillion? Or sorry, is it trillion? Yeah, trillion. Okay, 1% of 8.6 trillion is, it gave me, I'm not even, hold on. Just give me the simple answer here. What, how much percent? No, what? Come on, this is easy. What is 1% of $8.6 trillion? Come on now. It's 86 billion US dollars. So do you guys feel that whoopsies on behalf of the Social Security Administration each, year, it's total payments between 2015 and 2022. So do you feel that 86 billion lost in whoopsies is like a no big deal? To me, 86 billion lost would require Area 51 and honestly a side war. That to me, that's what, you know what I mean. But a small one, a very tiny one, maybe something in like the Pacific Theater with a small island, something like that, something cute. You know what I mean? Just a little one. So the point that I'm getting at is like, do you think that that's okay that they would between 2015 and 2022 lose, basically $86 billion? To me, I don't know. To me, that's a lot of money. Like $86 billion, that's like almost the entire, that's like the wealth of one of the wealthiest people on planet Earth. Oh, no, sorry. Is that correct? No, hold on. What is the wealth? Who is the richest person right now? How rich is the richest person? Because I feel like we're got to be getting to trillions, right? All right, so Elon's at 400 billion. All right, let's how much do the top 20 richest people have There we go. Let's get the list real quick. Let's see what we got here. Hold on. Let's look at this real quick. Are they going to give us a cool list? Nope, they're not. All right, let's scroll down here. Here's the Forbes. We're using Forbes again. Here we go. We're going to go all the way down to how much they lose between 2015 and 2022 in whoopsie payments. Okay. So in whoopsie payments, they lose Carlos Slim Helu. He's that guy who owns all that telecommunication stuff in Mexico. He's like a telecom boss. His entire family worth is lost every 7 years from 2015 to 2022 by the SSA, or more. Sorry, it's actually more than his entire net worth. Carlos Slim's entire net worth, more than that, is actually lost between 2015 and 2022. If you look at Francois Betancourt Myers and family, they lose. That's the France L'Oreal fashion retail, the luxury, the guy who owns, the billionaire that owns all that stuff. Yeah, so they lose more than him too, right? They lose more than his entire wealth. They lose slightly less wealth than Michael Dell of Dell Technologies at $97.7 billion, or Jensen Huang of Semiconductor Technology of the United States, or, oh my God, I can't believe this. Look at this. Julia Koch and Charles Koch. Julia Koch has $74.2 billion. Charles Koch has $67.5 billion. Who are the top five? Let me see real quick. You got Elon, then you got Mark Zuckerberg, then you got Jeff Bezos, then you got Larry Ellison, and then you got Bernard Arnault. He's just luxury, super luxury. Larry Ellison was Oracle, computer guy. Jeff Bezos, obviously Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, and Elon with a bunch of companies. But look at that. Yeah, these guys are all, I mean, they're even rich. Walmart's not even up there. You got to go all the way to 8 to get to Walmart people. Damn. Wow. No, sorry, Google. You get to Google people at 8. You get to Walmart people at 11. Jeez. You want Bill Gates, he's at 13. All right, so my point with this is, just so you kind of understand it, is from 2015 to essentially 2022, they lost the worth of around America's, let's see, 19th. It's actually between the 19th and 18th most rich people / families on planet Earth. They lost that amount. So like when they advertise, it's only around 1%. Damn. You know what I mean? That is a significant amount of money to whoops on. That it's completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And I've heard the arguments where they're like, yeah. Well, the private insurance companies, they don't do so well either. Well, okay, but they actually, they earn the business by people choosing them. Whereas Social Security, like, you are required at birth to pay into it. So, losing 86. No, wait, hold on. Losing $86 billion between 2015 and 2022 of forced monetary payments on behalf of the mostly, middle class. That's shit. That's horrible. That's disgusting. The Supreme Court in June paused a lower court order blocking DOGE from accessing Social Security Administration records and sent the case back to Federal Appeals Court for further review. The lawsuit was initially filed by 2 labor unions and an advocacy group challenging DOGE's attempt to access the records. DOGE also pulled from the Social Security Administration to create a database Immigration and Customs Enforcement could use to identify and deport undocumented migrants. All right, so here's my first problem with this whole scenario of DOGE and Elon creating this super, super risky server where they could steal your Social Security number, information, addresses, phone numbers. They've already, for the most part, been stolen. Okay, so this idea that like they're at risk, they're already at risk. People already have them on their servers. There's literally a company out there that after they were stolen, remember December 2023, there was a company, a securities company that said, look, we went through and created a database system where you could go and log in, click some things and put your information in to see if your Social Security number was stolen. And I went and used it. I even went and looked at the file that existed on the dark web. You know what I mean? And it was there. It was there. So the point that I'm getting at that you guys have to kind of like keep in mind with this whole situation is that at the end of the day, it's already out there. That's why they have to change the way they're doing things, because fraud is rampant. Now, who are the biggest beneficiaries when it comes to fraudulent activities? Those would be money people who are looking for a way to put money onto different social security numbers so that they don't have to pay as much taxes. That's number one. And number two, basically, when it comes to identity fraud, okay? Social Security, basically has had employees that have literally gone and sold your information, not necessarily you, but like, recipients' information to other illegal immigrants who have essentially gone and used it to sell to other people. You're ever sitting there wondering how legal immigrants got so lucky with magically having a working social security number to a person that is still alive or was recently deceased but never reported deceased? There is a reason why. It's because, unfortunately, there are some very, very bad SSA employees, but they're catching them, though, and that's very good. Now, it's the Office of Inspector Generals. They're getting better at it. They got systems that are even better than they've ever been. So when they make this argument that Elon has totally effed up, has totally snitched your information to put it onto a DOGE server, I guess the first thing I'm thinking is, so what's the big deal? It's already been out there many times. Then the next thing I'm thinking is, hey, wait a minute. We already have multiple partners that are not official government entities that have full access to the base elements of your private information, right? The whole reason the big one was where there was a literal company that would scan your images and collect information about you and create a profile and link it to your social security information to feed the government so that the government would have stuff about you. It's the ultimate workaround to getting a traditional warrant signed, because now they just have a company out there that's constantly scanning whatever's up on the web, whatever you put on Facebook or whatever, and then putting it into a profile that is a you profile. So to me, I was sitting there, I was just thinking, wait a minute. We are bitching about a government entity that is created back in the Obama era, now under the Trump era, that has a server that basically, is specifically linked to only DOGE personnel. I see the harm, because what they're saying is that server is not as protected as other systems. I don't know if you guys have seen what the government uses for these systems, these protective systems. Some of them look like Windows 95. Actually, one of them looks worse than that. Yeah, definitely looks worse than that. Some of them look like Windows 2000, right? Like, how secure are they? I mean, they're trying, But if Elon comes through and says, look, we're going to set up this system and this is how we're going to do it and this is how we're going to wiggle this stuff through and this is how we're going to keep it. Look, sure, maybe it'll get hacked. But there's a bunch of other partners where it seems like your stuff is already getting hacked. You know what I mean? So on the level of how shit this situation is, that Elon's Doge took your information and put it onto a government server, I don't feel like it's that scary. First off, if no social security numbers had ever been stolen, then I would be like, oh man, we got to take a look at this. Oh, but they have, in the millions and potentially billions. Then I look at this and say, okay, well, look, is this going on to a server that's not for the official government use, or it is a partner of the government, but they're not an actual administration? No, they're part of the federal government. They're part of the federal government. So, right off the bat, I don't know. I didn't think it was like there was more ramp up and excitement. And the other problem too is that there's this bias in this writing. Like when I'm an attorney and I read through stuff, there's this shit bias that shows up. And I don't like it when I see it in Forbes. I know Forbes leans left, and I get it, which is weird because they're supposed to be like a money thing, and money people usually lean right. But there's this bias, you know what I mean, that I get from the Forbes stuff. And I don't like seeing it because I would like to see them more in the middle. Here, Borges' complaint adds to the contention surrounding DOGE's access to Social Security information, which has been the subject of multiple lawsuits seeking to block DOGE from accessing data through the Supreme Court granted DOGE unlimited access to the data. It goes on and on and on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so hold on. I want to find the exact spot where I was reading it, and then I was like, oh, here we go. Hold on. Okay, so typically required despite a Social Security Administration assessment that determined the project was high risk and could have catastrophic impact if the cloud server were breached. Well, no shit. Everything that includes Social Security numbers is high risk, could have a catastrophic impact if the cloud server were breached. Give a little bit of background, right? It's like they're selling you this idea of these big flashy words, but there's no background to it. They're not explaining, hey, look, like if the SSA was like able to accurately deliver to you the truth, they would have to say, hey, look, there's a bunch of, there's tens of other agencies and administrations inside the federal government that have access to this information. It's on their servers. And on top of that, to be fair, we also work with partners who also have the entire list or near entire list of Social Security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, that too. And then on top of that, yes, most of these Social Security numbers or a massive chunk have already been stolen and put on the dark web. Yeah, that happened too. If they were just able to realistically be honest about it. And that was my favorite part of this whole thing. This is my favorite part of the whole thing. 2020 election. Of course there was no cheating. Right? Hold on. Let me find it. Let me find this for you. This is my favorite part of the Biden administration. This is my favorite part. And you got to remember, when did Biden release the executive order to protected information? Whatever. It's 1:10 a.m. We're not going to be able to go live after this because I'm too tired. But the point is, I'll go live tomorrow. But it wasn't. No, it wasn't 2024. I think it was in 2022 or 2021. Hold on. 2021. Let's see what we get here. Google does a little of that too. Yeah. Here it is. You can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up, okay? So 2020, the election was perfecto. No cheating here. No wiggle there. Everything was great. I know we saw suitcases filled with ballots being pulled out of tables while they put things on the windows so people couldn't see their ballot counting process. I know that seemed underhanded. I know it seemed a little shit, I know. So that's the 2020 election thing, right? Then June 9th, even before that, May 12th of 2021, Biden comes out with the executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity with a broad initiative to enhance cybersecurity for federal agencies and software providers after the SolarWinds attack. June 9th, 2021, the executive order on protecting American sensitive data from foreign adversaries, addressing the risks of foreign-controlled apps like TikTok and WeChat accessing U.S. data. There's no cheating. Don't be silly. Everything's locked down. Everything's solid as a rock. And that's the thing, and some of you are going to be like, oh, obviously, I'm an independent. But we as independents laugh at the D's and the R's. We laugh at you because, at the end of the day, when one guy's in, the other guy screams this. When the other guy's in, the other side screams the exact same thing. We laugh at it because it's hilarious to us. It's like a big game. I think, though, a lot of people are waking up to it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are realizing what's going on. I think there's a lot more waking up going on. Well, I think on the Republican side, there was a lot more waking up during the Biden administration. I think, people were getting awake and then they became awoken. And then, of course, the Democrats went super woke and the Republicans became awoken, right? And so the thing is, then, right, the Republicans were like, then became very educated on the political system. And the Democrats were pushing a lot of agendas that really narrowed the field on who would actually vote for the Democrats. I don't know if you saw the recent parade that was canceled. It was the Gay Pride Parade that was canceled by the, Free Palestine interloping group that came in to demand that their parade occur at the same time. So what's happening is, as a result of all this, we're seeing a difficult thing happen. We're seeing the Republicans and the MAGA hats competing with the people who liked classical republicanism. And these two are clashing. And then you got the independents who kind of liked the Obama era, the Clinton era, the pre-Obama, and kind of the, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, the Clinton era ideology. It was enough Republican and enough Democrat. It was like in the middle. It was just a smart approach to things, albeit obviously Clinton had some issues with the Oval Office and didn't follow things exactly as should have been, yada, yada. Point is, it's kind of that Clinton era stylistic approach. Then you have Democrats who, the party's kind of eating itself at this point. They lost the Jewish vote, they lost the African American vote, they lost a bunch of the Latino votes. Their main structural points now are Islam and LGBTQ, and there's not enough of those individuals to, and then of course Caucasian white female votes who feel victimized, and those are like kind of your core groups voting for that. It's just not enough of those people to actually create the army of votes that they need. So that's why I'm a little worried for the Democrats, because we need them to innovate. We need them to innovate, but like they went into a zone where they're not trying to appease enough people to like continue to get voted in. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at the midterms, because it's going to tell people where the American people are at. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not there's a Republican after Trump. You know what I mean? Because remember, everybody was like, there's going to be a Republican after Trump. And then, with the first one, and then it didn't happen, So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see it. But my point with this whole structural situation with DOGE and Elon and, this super secret server that basically, the same information goes on a lot of servers. And it's not all on the same Social Security server. So when I read this, I took it kind of as like a bullshitty thing. And the more I learned about it, I realized it was basically a hit piece. To me, this was a whistleblower that was doing a hit piece to try and create some excitement about Social Security, which I don't dislike, right? When things are happening with Social Security, I get to talk about them. Like, who am I to say that they shouldn't be, getting a bunch of whistleblowers out and, tooting on their horn? But when I read through this the first time, I was like, this seems like some BS. You know what I mean? This seems like low level BS. The agency that was put in charge of auditing the Social Security Administration copied, multiple things within the SSA and put them on their private server so that they could analyze them. I guess that's news. All right. I will catch you all a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. The last video, we didn't even get to talk about that because they literally cut it off. And that's what happens. We were talking about pretty sensitive stuff, which is, how they basically pay to get access to your, phone records, your text records, your email records, other communication platforms that you use, etc. One of the things that's going to be really interesting that a lot of you don't really think about is they do capture your car driving information. Another thing that they do and will be doing in the future is they'll be capturing other at-home devices, including future robots that use AI. They'll be able to know where you were in the house. They'll be able to know what the robot was requested to do, all those kinds of things. So anyways, I will catch you all a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. Please remember to head over to Google. If you like these videos where we go into stuff, click on disability resolution. The business profile is on Google. Think about it. You can always throw some stars up there. I'll catch you all a little bit later. Remember to like and subscribe, but also please remember, I usually go live on Mondays and Thursdays. I'm not going live tonight. It's too late. It's 1:18 a.m. I have to wake up at 7. But the bottom line is this. If you need me to go ahead and figure something out for you, there's a 30-minute and 1-hour consultation option in the bio area below. It's a tiny mini contract. You fill it out, you send the payment, we put you on the hearing calendar. I'll catch you a little bit later. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, and thank you so much. All right, sleep well, everybody. Catch you later. Bye-bye.